Welcome to chapter 10, the book of Ecclesiastes, the ways of the wise and foolish. I'll read a little in Greek, then we'll go through the chapter. Mie thanatuse sapriusi skevasian eleu idismatos. Timion oligon sophias hyperdoxan Afrosinis megalis. A fly put to death will rot a concoction of luscious oil. A little wisdom is valuable over great glory and folly. Here it's a fly, which is a small insect, ruins something, where the opposite, a little of wisdom, is valuable over the great glory of folly. So they're the opposites. The heart of a wise one is at his right hand, and the heart of a foolish one is at his left. Now, to the ancients, the right hand was the lucky hand, and your unlucky side was your left. Sorry if you're left-handed, but that's what it was. So that's why they bring this in. If you're something on the right is on the lucky side. And indeed, whenever a foolish one should go in the way of his heart, he will fail. And all which he considers is folly. If pneuma, spirit of the one exercising authority, should ascend against you, you should not leave your place. For a cure, and that is pacifying, will put to rest great sins, and the more or less is like a king. If you're there, he comes against you or whatever, just relax and try to do the best you can and pacify him the best way you can. There is a wickedness which I beheld under the sun, as an unintentional act came forth from a person exercising authority. Accidents will happen even by powerful people. The foolish one was put in great heights, made powerful, and the rich shall settle in low. So he has seen that. He says, I beheld bondmen upon horses. That would be a bondman, a slave, and rulers going as bondmen upon the ground. And he captured many, he didn't really go to war too much himself. It's mainly David, his father, but he probably saw that. Many rulers were brought low. The one digging a cesspool shall fall into it. Well, now, there's probably more to what he's saying here than just digging a cesspool, because everybody would dig cesspools for sewage and so forth. But I suppose he's kind of saying that anybody that's a fool or doing bad, that will fall into his own mess. And the one demolishing a fence boundary, a serpent shall bite him. And the fence boundaries were very important to the people, especially in Israel. They delineated boundaries for all the tribes. And so if you put a boundary, something like I have out in front of my house, by the rock fence, a little rebar pipe that was put there by a surveyor. So I know where my boundary is. Now, if somebody came and pulled that rebar up and moved it over towards my house a foot so that I would lose a foot of real estate, that's illegal. And in these days, they had rocks and trees and certain things, and that was their boundary. So it was a real no-no. A serpent's going to bite you if you do that. More of a curse. One lifting away stones shall work hard among them, and one splitting wood shall be exposed to danger in them. So whatever you do, there is the danger and hard work, toil and danger. If an iron implement should fall off, and he disturbed countenance, then power and abundance shall strengthen to the man of which is wisdom. Now, this was a hard one for me to try to figure out. I looked up in the Hebrew, and this disturbed countenance was more of wetting the edge, face. Here could be a face, and he disturbed the face of the instrument possibly and wetted it, is what the Hebrew is saying. And so if it falls off and it was sharp, but now you're going to have to use strength and abundance. It's going to be difficult to do whatever you're doing, but wisdom will overcome as a sharpened tool. That's the best I can come up with. That one. It's a little on the difficult side for me. If the serpent should bite with no enchanter whispering, then there is not an advantage to the one for charming. I changed this one a little bit. If there's no enchanter whispering, with the cobra that comes out of the basket, and they have a little flute, and then the cobra goes back and forth. And I suppose people did this for charming, telling. I'm not exactly sure if they used it somewhat for telling someone's fortune by using this process of charming. If you can charm a cobra, then maybe you know something that's going on in the future. I think that's sort of what it's about. The words of a wise mouth carry favor, but the lips of a foolish one shall sink him. And so words of a wise mouth carries the favor. It's nice to hear somebody wise, and the fool, forget it, you don't want to hear them. And beginning with words of his mouth in folly, that is the fool, but the lips of the foolish one shall sink him, beginning with words of his mouth in folly, and the end of his mouth wicked madness. And the foolish one multiplies words. Man knows not what is the thing becoming and what is the thing being. Well, after him, who shall announce to him? This first sentence here, and the foolish one, maybe I should put a semicolon there where it continues, and the foolish one multiplies words, and then it stops, and then the next subject, man, anthropos, knows not what the thing becoming is, doesn't know the future, doesn't hardly know what's going on, and after him, who will announce to him? But the becoming was something that happened shortly, or that's going to happen shortly. The effort of the foolish ones shall trouble them, as one who knows not how to go into a city. Now, exactly what that means, I suppose if you're going into a large city and you don't know what you're doing, you've never been there, it can be a real not disturbing thing because you could get lost and so forth. And the effort of a foolish one is sort of the same thing as a person that goes into a city and doesn't know where he's going. Neither does a foolish one. Woe to you, O city, of which your king is younger, and your rulers eat in the morning. Now, Solomon was younger, and so I don't know why he's saying this, and what eating in the morning has anything to do with it. May have something to do with their customs at the time that Solomon wrote this. Blessed is your land, of which your king is a son of free men, and your rulers at a proper time shall eat in force and shall not be ashamed. And king is a son of free men. I get, instead of being somebody that was subservient to others. By slothful neglect, a building will be lowered, fall apart, and in idleness of hands, the house will drip. If you don't fix the roof, then the rains, it's going to drip. So the idleness and slothfulness both cause a lot of problems because of not dealing with the situation at hand that needs to be taken care of to make your life easier. For laughter they make bread and wine and olive oil. It's for our good, for the living to be glad. And silver, I had money, but it's actually argiriu, silver, all will heed. And indeed, in your conscience, you should not curse a king. And in the closets of your bedrooms, you should not curse a rich man, for a winged creature of the heaven, a bird, shall carry your voice, and the one having the wings shall report your word. Somebody's overhearing, listening. You should not curse a king. In the New Testament, it says Paul says in Romans 13:1, every soul be submitted to authorities, being superior. For there is not an authority unless from God. And the ones being authorities are ordered by God, so that the one rebelling against the authority opposes the disposition of God, and anyone opposing will receive judgment to themselves. And then he says in 1 Timothy 2:1, I appeal then, first of all, to make supplications, prayers, intercessions, thankfulnesses for all men, for kings, and of all the ones being in superiority, that a calm and unassuming existence should be led in all piety and seriousness. Now, I believe we need to follow this example, and I think about, well, other countries, like in China, where they've got billions of people, or a billion and more, billion and a half people. Christians could get along fine there, unless somebody wants to attack them for whatever reason, because a lot of times Christians don't follow the things of God, and you have people right now that are political in church. I went to church yesterday, which I hardly ever do, and they had a ballot for Christians of what you're supposed to vote for. Well, I just don't like churches doing that. I would never tell anybody who or what they should or shouldn't vote for, but whoever is elected or whoever's put in charge, it says God is the one that's done it. Of course, now you can say, well, what about, like Nazi Germany? They elected Hitler, and he did really terrible. Well, of course, but God uses evil people to punish other people that are doing evil things. But if we are Christians, I believe the best thing to do is to stay away out of politics. Jesus says not to be of the world. We're to be separated. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't vote and you shouldn't be involved at all. I would tread lightly. And tomorrow is the 9th of November. It's our election day in the United States. Midterms, we're not electing a president, but governors and senators and so forth. But now with all of this that Paul has said about doing attitude towards people that are rulers, what happens if you have a ruler who is infantile, who calls other people names? What about somebody like that? What should we do about that? Well, personally, if I found somebody that was doing things against God, then I would not vote for him if that vote was up for a vote. And then you'll say, well, what if the person on the other side was worse than him? He wanted abortion. He wanted to kill, do all kinds of terrible things. Well, you can always not vote for either one. And that's a possibility. And then God eventually is going to be choosing the person anyway. So whether we vote or not really doesn't matter, because I don't really believe it matters at all, because God is the one who matters. He's the one who's going to decide who is the ruler that he's chosen for either doing good for the people or doing bad. Now, you can have a ruler, like I said, he's infantile, calling people's names, and he might end up doing good, might not, and I'm not trying to put the blame on anybody, and you can decide yourself. And to me, it's if the shoe fits, then wear it. And so Solomon here, and indeed in your conscience, you should not curse a king. And I've heard a lot of Christians saying bad things against the ruler, not a king. And I don't think we're supposed to do that. I don't think we're supposed to do it. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what the word says. You should not curse a king, and then the things that Paul said. So I'll leave it at that. Go into the next video seminar next, chapter 11, The Ways of Equity. Hope you join us. Till then, God bless.